As long as I was going after the crooks that didn't have badges, I was everybody's hero.
All right, we're talking with Aubrey Robertson. Aubrey is running for McLennan County District Attorney. I've known Robbie for a long time. I think the world of him, and I hope you'll vote for him. We're here mainly to talk about some criminal law issues, though. This isn't a political commercial, because I know all my people out there. We've got a lot of followers, and I kind of know how a lot of you are leaning by the emails we get. So if you live around here, vote for Robbie. He's the guy you're looking for to protect your interest in the DA's office. Aubrey, tell us about running for DA.
Well, one of the things I've learned through the campaign is I never buy enough candy for these parades. I've now done a few of these things, and inevitably halfway through I'm out of candy. And I feel bad for all the people at the end of the parade. So if you've been at the end of one of those parades, I'm sorry you didn't get the candy. All the people at the front did. I'm learning that it's expensive to do this. It's expensive to run a campaign. But
especially for you.
Right.
Because I've never seen a politician not take campaign contributions from lawyers.
Right.
And you have refused to take campaign. I tried to give you money and you wouldn't take it.
Right.
So, yeah, it's costing you money out of your own pocket because you're trying to do the right thing here and get in and not owe anybody any favors, including me. I kind of resent that, but I respect it too.
Yeah, I made that decision, and it was, I made the decision not to take donations specifically from criminal defense attorneys. I've still had defense attorneys, even as recently as yesterday, ask if I'm sure that they can't donate, and well, what if my spouse donates, But
I ask you every week too. Right. So you're getting other people besides me.
Correct. So it's one of those things that I felt, it felt strange to have the idea of cashing a defense attorney's check on a Friday and going to trial against them on a Monday. I think the people of McLennan County should expect that when the prosecutor stands up and says that they represent the people of McLennan County, the people of the state of Texas, there shouldn't be a question about where that prosecutor's interests lie.
I totally agree with you, because when I was DA, I always felt very uncomfortable about soliciting and accepting money from criminal defense lawyers, because I knew they always thought that gave them just a free walk into my office.
Right.
Doesn't mean I do what they ask, but it kind of meant they expected me to.
Right.
And it just was very uncomfortable. So I got to tell you, I really respect you for that decision.
Well, and it's hard, and don't think it's not tempting to want to, take your money or any defense attorney's money that's offered it so far. But it's the principle of the thing. And let's be absolutely clear. There's nothing truly unethical in the State Bar of Texas or in any campaign laws. There's nothing unethical about me taking your money. Right. It's absolutely legal. You're free to donate to whomever you want to. But this is just a choice based on my own personal code of ethics. And that's why I chose not to do that. I just think it's you should avoid at all costs even the appearance of impropriety.
I think that's very courageous, and it's something that your predecessors should have thought about, including me. Yeah. I wish I'd even thought about that, but that was so far out of our thinking back in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, again, it'd be great to take politics out of this office completely, to have this be a nonpartisan race like city council is, or, some municipal elections. There's nothing political about the district attorney's office. There's nothing. I
agree. I've never understood why the DA or judges have to run with a party affiliation.
Right.
Because like you'll see in Dallas or in Houston, they'll have a big turnover because the Republicans are strong this year, or maybe the Democrats, and you got 50 new judges.
Correct. Yeah.
And then about the time they learn the ropes and start doing good, then things flip and they're voted out. Right. Not because of anything they did or didn't do. It's just because it's whether there's an R or a D by their name.
Well, and that's what's so sad, is that it does come down oftentimes to that R or D after your name. You and I've talked about it before. I'm so glad that Texas got rid of straight ticket voting, where it forces you now to go down the entire ballot and cast a vote, as opposed to voting by party. I think that we should expect people to know a little bit about the candidates they're voting for. Elections are job interviews. I'm asking the people of McLennan County to hire me as district attorney. And so this is a job interview. It should be based on, our experience, our qualifications, not whether or not there's an R or a D after my name on the ballot.
I agree with that. We're talking with Aubrey Robertson. He's running for McLennan County DA. Get out in November and vote for him. If you're not a lawyer, you can even make a contribution. But he's not taking contributions from lawyers. Aubrey, what's your views on marijuana?
So I think marijuana should be legal. I really do. I see the tens of millions of dollars in tax revenue that other states are getting from the legalization of marijuana. And then I look at our state, which continues to spend tens of millions of dollars in the prosecution and detention of people that are in possession of small quantities of marijuana. And so it seems like such a backwards notion that when all these other states are cashing in, we're leaving all this money on the table.
Not only are other states cashing in and making money that Texas isn't making, but their citizens are getting to benefit from the benefits of marijuana. We're starting to wake up and realize that our government has lied to us for nearly a century about this herb, that it really is beneficial, that it really does. And this is my opinion. This isn't necessarily Robbie's, so let's see what he has to say. I've talked about this many times on this podcast, how the government has been like a dog in the manger, laying on that weed. It won't let anybody get to it that wants it, but it's not going to take it either. It's just mean. And I think if you follow the money, you'll realize they're protecting big pharma. There have been studies done recently that show that every state that passes a medical marijuana, just medical, that the profits of the pharmaceutical industry go down $3 billion a year per state, per year.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Right.
And so that's a lot of greenbacks that they're slipping into legislators' pockets. You need to figure out how your legislators are voting and vote them out if they're not living up to your interests. Two things I'm very interested in. One of them the DA's office has nothing to do with, and that's insurance. We need insurance reform in this state really bad. And the other one is marijuana reform.
Right.
It should be legal. I totally agree with you. Why hasn't Texas legalized it?
I think it is these holdovers from these older guys in the Republican Party who don't understand that change is happening all around them, and they're, standing on an island, I don't know, swatting it at the bats with brooms. I don't know what they're doing. It's so nonsensical to me, the stance that they're taking. And you brought up the point about vote these people out. We have two really good Democrats running in McLennan County for our House seats, our House legislature, Aaron Shank and Cedric Davis. Both of them believe that marijuana should be legalized. Aaron's running against Doc Anderson, and Cedric is running for a newly created seat. Both of those seats have McLennan County included in them. And so, vote for them too, because it is the legislature that can change that law. And Aaron, she likes to share the story. She has a special needs daughter, and she has a medical marijuana prescription for her special needs daughter, talking about the medical benefits like you were.
Because her daughter used to have seizures.
Correct. And Aaron shares the story on the campaign trail when asked about marijuana. She gives this deeply personal account of seeing her poor young helpless daughter suffer multiple seizures in a day and then be prescribed the medical marijuana and go down to little to no seizures. And so when you have that kind of real world experience like Aaron's describing in those stories, that's the kind of person I want making the decision for me in Austin. Somebody who knows what's going on. And so by all means, vote for me, but also vote for Aaron Shank and Cedric Davis as well.
Well, a couple of years ago, the state of Texas passed what they've been calling the hemp law.
Right.
Without realizing how that was going to affect marijuana prosecution.
Right.
It's really messed it up, and I'm glad. I don't know why a lot of lawyers are still pleading their clients guilty to simple possession based on, we smelled it or something like
Right.
that. I just don't get that. Tell us about the hemp law and how that affects marijuana prosecution.
So the big thing that the hemp law did was it said hemp is legal, or a product is legal that contains a certain level of THC. If it exceeds that amount of THC, then it becomes illegal. The problem is, and there were a lot of other things contained in that law, but that's the nut of what applies to us as criminal defense lawyers. When they passed that law, they didn't take into consideration that the state of Texas didn't have in place the equipment and training for their lab techs to actually quantify how much THC is contained in plant material. So there were only a few machines in the entire state that could run this quantification test. And so DA's offices across the state started dismissing marijuana cases because they saw that it wasn't cost effective, that it doesn't make sense to spend the money to have all of this plant material tested for this low level offense. And so again, DA's offices across the state were dismissing cases.
Yeah, Houston dismissed tons of them. Just went and said, all right, this is a new law. All these cases are dumped. Now, McLennan County's not doing that.
Right.
They're just letting their backlog build and build and build, hoping that somebody's going to eventually plead or pay some fine or something.
Right.
What's going on with that?
Well, I think it's a misconception that if you support the legalization of marijuana, that you are somehow soft on crime, right? That there's always this link of, oh, well, if you think marijuana should be legalized, well, then clearly you think people should be able to shoot each other. It's that kind of.
But I prosecuted death penalty cases, and even when I was DA in the 80s, I thought it should be legalized. That's how I got the endorsement of the Baylor Young Democrats, because I went over and I told them, I don't think somebody caught with a joint should get prosecuted.
Right. And I think as an elected official in charge of a county office that uses taxpayer dollars, I think that official should absolutely be cognizant of the money that's expended on certain types of cases. Do the citizens of McLennan County really want their district attorney's office spending money prosecuting possession of marijuana cases?
Something that shouldn't be a crime anyway, should never have been a crime in the first place, and that more than half the states in this country have legalized now in some form or fashion, maybe 2/3.
Well, and again, it's also, there's this, again, I'll say misconception that if you're pro legalization, you are anti-law enforcement.
Which is crazy.
Which is, right. It's nonsensical. And so these, some people wrap themselves in this pro-law enforcement argument to argue with the pro-legalization people. And it's not correct. I will say my experience working with law enforcement, I understand some of their hesitancy when it comes to legalization. They see it kind of like I was talking about before about tying one hand behind my back by not seeking the death penalty in the appropriate case. I think a lot of times, a lot of police officers would tell you that, yes, a stop may start as a, simple traffic stop turned into some other investigation. And sometimes that tipping point is the odor of burnt marijuana or the odor of marijuana. And officers then have probable cause to search the vehicle. And so officers, I think, now are concerned that maybe they won't be able to catch as much crime if they can't search as many vehicles. And
so they just want to use the odor of marijuana as a pretense to get around the necessity of probable cause on the other offenses, is what it sounds like to me.
Well, I would not categorize it as using it to get around. I mean, I think they are utilizing the law as it is written. The law as it is states that's probable cause. So I understand why they do it. It's a tool in their toolbox that they use. My point is that if you make a traffic stop as a law enforcement officer and you approach the vehicle and you smell the odor of an alcoholic beverage and you see that the driver of the vehicle has red, bloodshot, glassy eyes, then you now have enough to do a DWI stop. You have enough probable cause to get that person out of the vehicle, conduct an investigation. The same would be true of intoxication cases based on marijuana.
Very good point.
And so we don't, and the best thing about all of this is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All of these other states who have had legalized marijuana now for years, their law enforcement communities know how to deal with it. So all we have to do is look to what those communities do, what those law enforcement communities do in enforcing, again, DWI cases or any of those marijuana related cases that we prosecute now that you and I both think shouldn't be prosecuted.
What's your thoughts on why the feds haven't taken weed off the Schedule 1 narcotics?
Yeah, wasn't that one of the promises we got from
Biden?
From Joe Biden that him and Kamala were going to take care of that, I thought, post haste.
I know. I even kind of vaguely remember Trump saying something about it in the first year he was in office.
I'm sure he tweeted about it.
Yeah, and then never did anything.
Right.
Like they'll make all these big promises. Oh, yeah, we're going to do what everybody knows is right, except for people with their head in the sand. But they never do it. And to me, it's follow the money.
Right.
Because big pharma is big. I mean, big pharma is so big that you can have doctors that are running a pill mill, putting tons of prescriptions out on the streets in Baltimore. And then our federal courts will say, oh, no, you didn't really prove what their intent was. Bullshit.
Right.
Bullshit.
No, some of those pharmaceutical companies have absolutely decimated communities, especially in West Virginia. There's huge communities where, people would line up for hours to get whatever the opioid of the day was. And so, yeah, the pharmaceutical industry would not be pleased if Texas legalized marijuana, but I think the other people that we should consider not being pleased are some of the drug cartels in Mexico.
The cartels. Yeah, that's why I'm just fall over Slade when somebody says, yo, you legalize it, that just helps the cartels. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. And
it puts them out of business.
Right. Well, and think about, again, all this tax revenue that you get. And when we talk about tax revenue, we are talking about billions of dollars. California had something like over $2 billion in tax revenue from the sale of marijuana. Think about how great of a border wall we could build with $2 billion.
No kidding.
Let's take some of that tax revenue that we get from marijuana. Let's really secure the border. Let's make it a secure border so that we don't have illegal drugs coming into the country. Let's put the cartels out of business. Let's take one of their biggest markets off the table for them. It's a win-win.
It's win-win
for everyone.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Except the cartel. Yeah.
Right. And especially in a state that has no state income tax. If you're the state of Texas, why wouldn't you be seeking out every revenue source possible?
Really?
Especially when you see these other states raking it in.
And when I go to Colorado or California and I walk into a dispensary, and I've been in, because I always try to make a tour of everyone I see, not only are they selling high-grade marijuana, but they're selling pipes.
Right.
They're selling ashtrays. They're selling incense. They're selling all kinds of accoutrements that go along with it that are also being taxed that wouldn't have been sold otherwise. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Well, and it goes, it's an agriculture industry at its very root. It's an agriculture industry. And it employs hundreds of thousands of people probably across the country. So it just seems asinine. I think it's important too. Your description of the dispensaries is important because I went to Denver Comic-Con. I don't know, it's been a few years ago now. And I went into a dispensary in Denver, and I've described it to people. It's like going into a coffee shop, like or a Starbucks or a bank. You have to show your ID to get through the door into the place where they sell the marijuana or the accoutrements, and you literally talk to somebody behind a counter and you have a conversation, and they ask you what your smoking preference is and why are you in town, and it's a wonderful experience. It employs lots of people, and it makes so much money for these communities, and it just seems so backwards.
It does. Last time I was in California, I went into a dispensary, and it was like a jewelry store.
Yeah.
I mean, there were it was just decked out with all these glass cabinets, and
Right.
and the guy would take his little key and unlock it and pull out the trays and let you smell of it.
Yeah.
And it was like buying a diamond ring, only cheaper.
Well, and anybody now who goes to Las Vegas, where marijuana is also legal now, just as the shows, going to the shows at the casinos or the best buffet, it is now part of the Las Vegas experience too, to go to a dispensary.
Yes, it is.
And I've seen them just like you're describing, where it is like a fine jewelry store or a fine department store. It really is an incredible experience. And again, why we would leave that money on the table and insist on prosecuting people for that. Because when we talk about prosecuting somebody, and you brought up a point that I want to come back to, when we talk about prosecuting somebody and the expenses related to that, it's not just paying prosecutors, right? It's paying the police officers that arrested the person, paying the jailers, paying for the person's stay at the jail, paying the court reporters,
paying
judges.
that private prison so
Right.
that 1% at the top can get richer and richer and richer off of us being so damn dumb.
Correct. And that's the exact point I wanted to come back to, was the private prison point. Because I think that once you turn the criminal justice system into a money-making opportunity, which is what those private prison systems have done, they have commercialized the criminal justice system. And once you do that is the slipperiest of slopes. Other lawyers will understand what I mean when I say a slippery slope. But when you incentivize imprisoning people to make money, you only have the motivation to arrest more people, to prosecute more people. And so it starts this vicious cycle.
I know. And the money is what it's all about. And It's not just the private prisons, but one thing they didn't have when I was DA that I'm just sick of now are all these damn classes that they make defendants take through the probation office, even though they haven't even been convicted of anything yet. Right. Sometimes they're out on bond and they still have to take off work or get a ride, or it's very inconvenient. What I've been saying for years is that our country is waging a war on poor people with the private prisons, with all the fines out the butt, man. Right. There's no way people can afford that. And then the classes they have to take, and the ankle monitors that they have to pay for, and that sometimes judges are ordering, and they're getting a kickback or getting paid by the company that's paying provides the ankle monitors.
Right.
I mean, we had 2 judges, I think it was in the Northeast, that were sentenced. They were older guys, sentenced to a lot of time in prison because of a heads on beds thing, private facilities for juveniles. Right. And they're sending these kids off for a couple years to these juvenile facilities that didn't need to be there. Well, it's just a sin.
Well, and there's a lot of reporting right now about the Texas juvenile justice system and how there are some kids in some of these juvenile facilities that are locked in their cells or rooms or whatever you want to call them at these facilities for 23 hours at a time, having to urinate into water bottles and go to the bathroom on their lunch trays. I mean,
it's child abuse.
It is, and it's state sanctioned and state sponsored. And the problem is the people in Austin won't dedicate the resources necessary to pay juvenile justice staff what they should be paid, because this is a consequence of there not being enough staffing at these facilities, and you can't keep staff if you're not going to pay them. And so you got to fix the juvenile justice system as well, and that's part of that. Let's lock them up. That school to prison pipeline that a lot of people talk about. So yeah.
We're talking with Aubrey Robertson. He's a candidate for McLennan County DA. He's an excellent lawyer here in Waco. Been working here for years. He's been an assistant DA. I told you at the beginning of this episode that we'd be talking about marijuana and guns. All we talked about was marijuana, but that's okay. It's one of my favorite subjects. When we come back next episode, we're going to talk about those guns. So a lot of people are interested in guns. What are the new gun laws? And we're going to pick Robbie's brain on that. Aubrey Robinson running for DA. This is the Vic Feazell Show podcast. Give us a listen. Hi, I'm Vic Feazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Feazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Feazell.